Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Laughter Yoga Australia September podcast. My name is Merv Neal. Delighted once again to have another amazing person in the Laughter Yoga community come on board to join us for around about the next half an hour, and that is Annie Harvey from South Australia. Now, the thing that I really enjoy about Annie is her professionalism. So, before this podcast, she sent me an email. I'm looking at it now and said, "Here's what you should ask me, Merv." And I'm going, "Oh, I know what to ask you, Annie," but just very precise there. And then all of a sudden, all of the things that I was supposed to ask her are all on her background there. I can actually see everything that she does. So she has many, many strings to her bow, which she's going to talk about and share with us. Annie, lovely to see you again. I actually caught up with Annie in person in Malaysia just a couple of weeks ago. It was delightful to see her in person. We might have shared a quiet red and had a bit of a chat about the problems of the world. So thanks for joining me today. Annie, we always start with the very first question. Tell me about Annie Harvey before we first met and before you got involved in laughter yoga.
Oh, that's a great question because that's 10 years ago I started. Well,
Yeah.
I was a teacher. I was a very burnt out teacher before we met. Before that, I worked in marketing. So I emigrated here to Australia from the UK in 2006. Only came for 2 years. So Adelaide is obviously doing something okay because we're still here 19 years later.
Yep.
But yeah, not really very many tools in my toolkit, I would say. That's what I was like before we met.
Cool. So what were you doing on a day-to-day basis before then?
So I trained to be a school teacher in Australia. Before that, I worked in uh, T TESOL, TEFL, ESL, whatever they call it in different countries all over the world. So teaching English to children, to migrants, and then trying to be a teacher when I came over here. And went from effectively winning Teacher of the Year in South Australia, a medal for it, to burning out and being very sick about 18 months later and leaving the full-time profession. And then I went to taught at TAFE for a little bit, and then opened a Kit McGrath tutoring franchise. So my husband and I ran that for on and off for 13 years. So I was still with children every day, teaching maths and English to, those. And I have a lovely story of one of the first 12-year-olds I think we assessed. He came in the door and said, "Where's the naughty corner?" "What do you mean, where's the naughty corner?" And he said, "Well, that's where I spend most of my time at school, so you might as well just tell me where it is."
Oh dear.
So we made a difference to kids like that basically for 13 years and in maths and English after school. And it was a great thing. So I could still keep all those teaching skills, but obviously build really big relationships because some of those kids came for 3, 4, 5 years after school every week.
Wow, amazing. And burnout is a real thing nowadays, post-COVID and everything that's going on in the world. So you were a little bit ahead of your time. So what caused your burn? What caused your burnout?
It's a good question. I think initially not having any resilience tools in my toolkit, I guess. Even that is an overused word now, but I hadn't had massive hardships in my life. I'd been through a pretty horrible divorce, but I didn't really know how to look after myself or really understand the need for it. And it's a huge need in the teaching. As you know, you've got kids that are teachers as well. Um, and also I most specifically wasn't given enough training when I was at university to teach children who have had huge trauma in their life. So, we many of us now know what trauma does to a child's brain or any brain really. And if I'd known that then, and I would have realised that I didn't just need to teach a particular kid in my class in my second year. It was never his fault. It was my lack of knowledge and training, really. I should have got him to get him to trust me for a year, not teach him maths and English and science and all the other fun things I was doing. I needed to get him to trust me, and I didn't understand his brain at all. So that I got very sick from it. I got what is now called, some people call it compassion fatigue. I used to call it empathy fatigue. Now in the medical world, we're calling it empathic distress, because it's really hard to actually fatigue from compassion and burn out from compassion, but you can from overusing your empathy if you don't look after yourself in those moments and afterwards, etc. So yeah, lots of things missing in that point in my life, and I was giving and giving. I'd found my, my calling, I guess, in my early 40s. I came to teaching fairly late and got very sick and just had to make the decision to walk away, which is a still really hard thing for me to say in public, to be honest.
That's life. I
Mm.
see one of the books there is called The Burnout Blueprint by Annie Harvey. I didn't know anything about that book. Do tell about that book.
Yeah, that was, I was actually doing a talk keynote for carers and people with Parkinson's earlier this year. And I'd had this book in the back of my brain for a while with all the things that I use and all the knowledge out there. And I thought, I'm going to use this as a deadline. It's pretty much how my business rolls. I don't really have a business plan as such. I just see an opportunity and jump at it. And I managed to get that, the beauty of self-publishing, get that out ready in time for that conference in Canberra. So it says for caregivers, it could say for parents, teachers, aged care workers, it could say anything on the front of it, really. Burnout can look and sound different for all of us, even though there's uh, a list we could look at, I guess. But I wanted specifically to work with people that are, particularly I was a carer of both my parents with dementia. So that's really how, when I started 10, 12, 13 years ago to build that toolkit. So it's all in that book, plus all the science behind it and everything else.
Wonderful. Um, so where did laughter yoga come into your life? When and where did that actually enter? I'm guessing sometime shortly after the burnout situation.
Yeah, so I was a carer to both my parents, more my mum at the time, I think, and I got an opportunity to go out to Melbourne to the convention centre to see His Holiness the Dalai Lama present. That was an amazing opportunity. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave my parents. My friend dragged me. I'm so glad she did to Melbourne 10 years ago. And there was this opportunity to try two things we could do at lunchtime. Try power napping. I'm really good at that. I didn't need to go to a breakout session. But there was this weird thing called laughter yoga. And I remember saying to my friend, I don't have the right kit. I don't have my yoga mat. She said, I don't think we need anything. It says we don't need anything. So went along and yeah, had one of the best experiences I'd had in a very long time, actually. I almost felt like I was on drugs. Not that I really know what that was like, but that's how I felt. I felt high when I came out of the session and then had to ground myself to watch His Holiness come on stage. And just went back to Adelaide and bless my husband Mark. I said, we're going to train in this thing called laughter yoga. He hadn't experienced it. And off we went. And that's how we met you.
It was indeed. I remember that very, very clearly. Always lovely when a husband and wife come along. And was Mark dragged against his better judgment to that
I
training?
think yes, a little bit, but he did trust me, thank goodness. And we literally used it yesterday. I'll tell you, you remember to ask me about that, but we used it together in the house yesterday, which is wonderful.
I'll put a little note to
Yeah.
finish up on that. The interesting thing about the Dalai Lama as well is he laughs all the time, and he's off the top of my head I can't remember his quotes, but I think one of them was "I am a smile millionaire" or something like this. He is absolutely into the laughter and smiling stuff, and if you see anything, especially of his recent stuff. He just laughs all the time. He is one of the most amazing men. So maybe the laughter yoga and the Dalai Lama were linked back at that time. So you trained. Then what? There's another little book up there, Young Hearts, Wise Souls. I'm not sure I know that one as well. Can you talk to that
Well,
one?
that's basically to do with the Giggle Game, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. The next one, the middle book, came next because I then, in the same year, discovered mindfulness. So went to a few courses, read a few books, downloaded a few apps, and initially that was actually suggested by my mum's GP on how I could look after myself as a carer. And what I learned from that training very, very quickly and listening to apps, I couldn't sit still, I couldn't meditate, I did it walking initially, was it gave me the patience and the permission, I guess, to sit and be present with my mum when she would be repeating the same story 25 times in one conversation. And that was mindfulness that gave me that tool, I guess, that presence. And I gave my mum the gift of listening, which is a wonderful thing to give anybody. And so trained the same year, trained to be a certified mindfulness trainer as well. And then in 2017, coming up to my 50th birthday, or just after my 50th birthday, I was, um, I guess, given a few dares. I decided to do 50 new things in my 50th year, and I didn't have a bucket list. So I just had to say yes to everything, which, got me into a bit of trouble now and again because I literally couldn't say no to anything that came, any challenge. So my friends bought me a jumping out of an aeroplane gift for my 50th, which was definitely not on my list, but I had to do it. I taught myself to swim when I was 50, which was an eventful time, but I managed it over about 6 months. And then someone dared me to apply to be a TEDx speaker. And I just kind of went, well, there's no way I'm going to get in, but I guess I have to say yes, I'll apply. That's what I'm saying yes to. So I wrote off this little email saying, I bet I could make 1,000 people in Adelaide Town Hall laugh out loud without any jokes for 3 minutes. And thought nothing of it, literally just laughed and pressed enter. And a few weeks later, I got a call. I think I was in the middle of the supermarket somewhere to say that I'd got a spot. And I'm jumping up and down, and I calmed down, realized how horrific this challenge now was because I had to do it. And I said, have I got 10 minutes or 12 minutes? Because that's how long a TEDx talk is. And they said, well, you've got 3 minutes because that's what you asked for. So um, that's what I planned for. And the beauty of training to be a TEDx speaker is they give you lots of training, and they realized that after a while that this was going to be quite an interactive talk, and maybe it needed to be longer than 3 minutes. So they gave me 6 minutes, and that's, I guess, become my calling card. And on the way out after that talk in Adelaide, somebody asked me if there was a book about what I had just talked about. And of course, what did I have to say? I had
Yes.
to say yes. There was no book. So then I raced home and Google how to self-publish at 50 or something like that. And that's where the little book of still came from, mainly to teach people the skill of mindfulness without having to meditate, because that isn't for everybody. So how you can bring it into your day.
I have purchased and read that book. It is an outstanding book. I can say that personally. So the TEDx thing, was that your first, let's say, big presentation in front of a big group?
Yeah, it was. And everyone thinks that school teachers can do that kind of thing, but for most, that's terrifying. We can stand up in front of 30, 6-year-olds,
Yeah.
but not in front of 1,000 adults. So it was certainly a high adrenaline experience. And because mine was interactive, I couldn't really practice it. You could have a few people watching in the audience, but I couldn't practice it until the actual day. And the beauty of TEDx audiences is that they pay their $90 for a ticket, whatever, and you feel like you're being held by them, whatever your topic is. So of course they joined in. But I think it was, sincere laughter as well. It was a lot of fun.
Very good. And I applied for TED to do a TED talk as well too. I wanted to get it out there, and they said no, and I'm going, oh, that was a bit disappointing. But then they contacted me and they said, oh, we've got an open mic night for TEDx in Melbourne. We're going to give you 3 minutes to talk on your topic. And I was up against 10 other people. It was one of these unreal situations, a room full of people. And I had my TEDx talk all documented verbatim, word for word, what I was going to do. And the guy who was in charge of the speaker run sheet just said, oh, by the way, you're at the end because you're going to do all that laughter stuff. And I looked at my sheet and go, no, I'm not. And I had my buddy with me. And he goes, yes, you are. He said, get rid of all that talking, just get them laughing. I came third behind two other amazing speakers out of the 10, which was nice. But at the end of the day, if you can get a group of people laughing, it's just absolute gold. Now, from there, I see you up on other stages presenting to other groups about other things. So, have you become a professional keynote speaker?
Yeah, that's what they call me. And again, that's not had a business plan as such. It's been fairly organic. Burnout was always going to be my topic. Um, and most of the time, like 99% of the time now, I will get the audience doing some laughter at the end of it. I would always, when I'm taking a briefing from a client, I will say, you need to trust me. And if I've read the audience correctly, then I will do a laughter session at the end if I'm not booked specifically for that. And I like to say that with the with burnout, I talk about the missing piece that no one talks about, which is self-efficacy. No one talks about it because no one really knows what it means. So, we talked about the efficacy of vaccinations during COVID, but that's really, it's not our everyday language. It's a very academic word and it comes from social theory in the 70s. It's not my thing I've made up, but I've just unpacked it so it's real and doable and practical for any situation really. So not only could it prevent burnout, but it can also make you feel or believe that you can be more successful in a variety of different areas. So I always like to say I've got high efficacy around standing up on a stage in front of strangers, but I've got very high self-efficacy, so high belief in my confidence that I'll never burn out again. And that's for two reasons. One, yes, I've got a toolkit. We can all learn these things, but I know that I can put those into practice every day. So that's the belief system around it. But I have low efficacy, low confidence in putting in a good tax return every year. So I'm always building. There's a bit of a theme to all the money in my life, but mainly because my dad was my bank manager and never taught me how to manage money, which is ironic.
I think that's called tax evasion. So we won't,
Ah,
we'll cut that out of the podcast. All right. I'm reading a book. I'm an avid reader. There's always a book on the go. And I saw it in the library, Hypnosis and Hypnotherapy. And guess what it talks about? Self-efficacy. So the fact that you've mentioned that is really quite bizarre because it just says it's changing that mindset about who you are and the confidence in yourself and the confidence in doing stuff and just being positive that you are the goods and you've clearly got that. And I guess there's a fine line between I've got this, I'm good at this, and how good am I?
hmm,
Does that make sense? And I
hmm.
see some people go too far and go, oh my, let me tell you how good I am. And I see this on social media. And I think that's called narcissistic personality disorder. So we've got self-efficacy where we have this confidence in ourselves and who we are. And certainly mine is with laughter yoga and laughter. I have this absolute confidence that it is just so good. All I have to do is deliver it to people and they'll love me to death. Move forward to this Giggle Game. This was something that was outstanding. I've played it. I've seen it right since day one. I think I may have had a hand in setting up the first gig for
Phone call.
the
Mm.
first phone call. Tell us about that because there was a phone call come through. I'm going to give this to Annie, and it just unleashed a monster. Tell us about the Giggle Game.
Yeah, it came from a childcare centre in Keith in South Australia, about 4 hours from here. I'd never heard of it, to be honest. And it was at the start of the pandemic, and the request was, we've got very stressed 4-year-olds, we've got very stressed educators. I think they said something along the lines of, we've tried yoga and it hasn't really helped us. And somewhere out of the blue, they discovered these words, laughter yoga, and got in touch. And that was, yeah, a phone call that turned into, again, not something that I had ever planned to do and has now become, I would say, my legacy. So I drove down there, took Mark with me, and went down twice in the first year of COVID and once online, trained all the staff. They even played the Giggle Game. It wasn't even called the Giggle Game then, actually. They played it along the corridors on the way to the nappy changing room. So it was helping the babies as well. And I had never done laughter yoga with kids. So I didn't really know what to expect. Each educator had 3 children to observe over 8 weeks, where they played it 2 or 3 times a day. And the results were outstanding, way more than we ever believed would happen. My favorite story, which I always tell, is a little girl with selective mutism. So
Ah,
she selected not to speak at preschool, but she would ask for the Giggle Game every day out loud, laugh out loud, and then go back to being quiet again. And lots of things that I hadn't really thought of. So that encouraged me to design it properly as a set of cards. It's now in its third version, actually. And it's also, when I was a teacher, or a relief teacher, should I say, I would get the brief that we understand you're a mindfulness teacher. So can you teach the kids mindfulness while you're doing relief teaching? And I say, well, I can, but first of all, I'd quite like to teach the adults so they can role model it. But also, not every child can lie down and feel their breath in their belly. So And I didn't know about laughter yoga when I was doing that, but now I know that if they can run off that energy and express those emotions, even though they don't know they're aware of they're doing it, and then do some mindful breathing, then that's the key and that's the goal. I've also learned lots about the vagus nerve in the last few years, so the latest set has got some vagus nerve resets as well, and that's partly because some teachers are still a little bit nervous about doing the laughter part. So it kind of helps them make like they hum like a bee, a buzz like a bee, for example. So they don't have to do the laughter, but they're doing a vagus nerve reset. And eventually their confidence will come. Um, and I think the main thing, because it's not really a game, that's the crazy thing. It's not, it's called the Giggle Game just because I like alliteration, but
Yep.
it's not a game. There's no winner in it, which is great. It's a co-regulation resource, I guess, for parents and teachers to regulate their own emotions and for those small children's nervous systems to pick that up, I guess, initially. Have a lot of fun with it. People use it in fitness. I've had some teachers use it in literacy and numeracy, and it's now aligned with the curriculum in actually quite a few countries here, the UK and the US as well.
Tell us, you've mentioned the UK. I know you've just come back from the UK. Tell us what's happening over there. Clearly, someone asked you to go there and you said yes. Um, what's happening over there for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky. I spent a few months of the year over there. That's not originally my home, a beautiful hometown of Bath. And I last year I took it to. I think you probably remember the old people's homes for 4-year-old, that
Yes.
the Australian ABC series.
Yes.
The teenage one is brilliant, by the way. There was a British one years before that. And I met some people from Melbourne who were coming over to the UK to see how aged care homes were run at the time, joined in with them, and ended up at this place in Bristol, about 10 miles from my own home, in the original place where this British series was filmed. And they have a preschool visit them every Tuesday morning. So I gifted them the Giggle Game and we played that with the elderly and these little 3-year-olds. And we bizarrely found out that the guy that runs the entertainment facilities side of it, we both sang in the same choir when we were 15 together at school.
Oh,
So, and then I went back this year to visit them again, and we had this beautiful moment where a 3-year-old was helping a 104-year-old do some breathing activities to blow these imaginary birthday candles out, which was pretty cool that a 3-year-old thought this basic flat card, which has a cake on it, thought it was his cake and could blow the candles out. So that was awesome. And I also took it to my mum's primary school, where she was a student and a teacher, and I've taken it to my own primary school as well.
brilliant. And Anna Glumac, you may or may not know of Anna here in Melbourne. She has started the first residential aged care facility with an early learning facility in the one building. It was years in the making. It wasn't based on that 4-year-old TV show.
No.
This was well before all of that. And she actually has the oldies, and I say that very, very affectionately, dealing with these, working and integrating with these little kids. And I said, I've got to come down and see it. And I took the Giggle Game down and I just cried most of the time. It was the most beautiful thing you have ever seen, to have the oldies interacting with the littlies and vice versa. You know, so these kids in these childcare centres, etc., are sometimes void of an interaction
Mm.
with the grandparent. And yet here was their pseudo grandparents. It was just the most beautiful thing ever seen. This is a loaded question because I know the answer to it. Does the Giggle Game work with adults?
Yes, of course it does. Of course it does. And it's interesting because going back to what you just said, there's so much research around intergenerational programs now. So,
Oh,
not
yeah.
just through laughter, it's absolutely wonderful. I'm involved in the Australian Institute, which is like the peak body as well. So I'm constantly doing more with adults and children, I guess, all the time. And I've played the Giggle Game. I do play the Giggle Game. I tell the story of, particularly that it's gone to Rwanda recently, and I tell that story in my keynotes. And I hold up the penguin card, and The adults stand like penguins. Penguins don't have knees. Everyone seems to be surprised by that. And then they waddle around the room or even on the spot in a conference room and just laugh out loud. And they absolutely love being childlike. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be the adult versions. I think they're very happily. And that when I spoke at the intergenerational conference last year, that was full of academics, and I was given 5 minutes again to talk about the Giggle Game. I ended with the crocodile laugh, and 2 days later, the chair was giving a synopsis of all the like 52 presenters or something. And yet, the crocodile laugh and the very good yay was remembered more than anything else over those 3 days. And yeah, they happily got up and got everyone to do the crocodile laugh and applauded at the end.
Brilliant. And we talk in Laughter Yoga about the childlike playfulness, the inner child. As an old, seasoned, hardened business person, I've struggled with this concept of play and bringing out the childlike playfulness. Clearly, you have that because of your school teaching background. I have many people come to my training who say, "Oh, I'd love to work with kids. What's the key thing? What's the one thing you need to have, Annie, to be good at working with kids?" I'm good at working with corporates and that sort of stuff. But when it comes to kids, I struggle. What's the key?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if there's one standard answer. I mean, I would always ask is what the ages are. So someone did yesterday, I'm going to work with 4 to 12-year-olds in one group. That's going to be pretty hard. If you do have to do it, because some of them are summer schools and things, then give the 12-year-olds a job because they're too cool for school. They're not necessarily going to do it in front of their friends, but they might, as in my experience working with teenagers, helping me sometimes design different cards for the Giggle Game. They'll do it if they've got the 3 and the 4-year-olds with them. So empower them to kind of pair up with the young ones, I guess. I always ask how many other adults are going to be in the room as well. It doesn't matter how many kids will be there. There
Yep.
needs to be that ratio because I don't want to be the crowd controller. And, when you first start laughter yoga with young children, it can turn into screaming. So it's how you as a really great facilitator can ensure that it's laughter, not screaming, but you also need that crowd control as well. And yeah, just be relaxed with it. I think that's the most important thing.
Really important point that you make, and we highlight this in the children's training, the one-day children's training. That's a blatant plug for our training that we put together because people, when they go to work with kids, reckon, that 4 years to 18 years is all the same, and it's not. It's a totally different gig. So I'm really glad that you highlighted that. You've just trained some people recently, I think I heard.
Yeah, so this wonderful principle, it's actually through, I've done another thing I said yes to. I'm now a dementia doula. And through the dementia doula world, I've met this wonderful lady called Wendy in Washington who volunteers at her elementary school.
Stop, time out, time out. Did you say dementia doula?
I did. I'll come back
Never
to that
heard of
in
it.
a second.
Educate, never heard of it. Educate me, please.
You want that now?
Yeah.
A dementia doula. It is a thing. There's probably 60, 70 of us trained in Australia right now, a few in the
Oh, wow.
States.
Oh, wow.
It comes from this wonderful lady called Wendy Hall, who was an AMBO, worked for Dementia Australia for a while, and then noticed a gap in compassionate care for families, really. And if I think about if I had existed when I was a carer, it would have been a very different journey with my parents. So it's not personal care, it's not medical care, it's ensuring that you're an advocate for the person with dementia, but you're also um, supplying tools and resources to the family members, to the loved ones on how they can keep themselves in their own driving seat of their life, I guess, and ensure that their wheels don't fall off as well. Um,
Mm.
and it's a fabulous community. I've just spent 5 days with 15 of them in Victoria. Um, and yeah, we all have a passion to work in that space. We all do it. I'm not running it as a business at the moment, but I'm having lots of conversations. And one of the things which does relate to children as well is, when you have a child in your class that is misbehaving and you have to put a behavior management plan into place, that most of the time that child is showing that behavior because there's an unmet need or they haven't taught themselves to regulate or whatever. It's exactly the same thing with people with dementia. So my dad was, considered to be a badly behaved person that would be moved from home to home. we're trying to, as a group, remove the word behavior from those sentences because it's a response to an unmet need. Like my dad was non-verbal. He didn't want to get up at 7 a.m. and be showered. He wanted to have a lion at the age of 95, and it looked like bad behavior, but it was just his response and he couldn't verbalize it. So it's just conversations like that we're having really. And it's a charity now, Dementia Doulas Australia. It's incredible.
Unbelievable. Well done on that. And once again, what's interesting, what you just said about that, you've got the littlies and then you've got the dementia folks, and they react to unmet needs that they can't communicate. People with dementia can't communicate effectively to you what their needs are, and neither can the littlies. So there's a real link between the two there. So that is absolutely brilliant. I've got some news. Our 30 minutes is up. I'm checked down here. I'm going, the 30 minutes is gone already. We try to keep it tight. Where can people find out more about you, Annie? Here's your big plug. Go for it.
Yep, so thestilloffact.com.au is my website. You can follow me on social media as well. And there's all sorts of resources, the Giggle Game, some videos, my books, my keynote info. And this has been really great, Merv. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. I've watched you develop over the last decade since we first met, and there is so much more ahead of you. So I wish you all the very best. And I'll just leave with an amusing anecdote because Annie has said she says yes to everything. I contacted Annie about 2 weeks ago and said, "Would you do a podcast with me?" And she said, "No, I'm too busy." I'm going, "What happened to yes?" She then contacted me recently and said, "Oh, we're going to do that thing." And I'm going, "Yes, we are." So there we go. You can say no to your friends. I think that's okay. Annie, it's been a delight. I'm sure people will follow you, including myself. Keep up the good work and thanks for the last half hour.
Thanks, Merv.
Okay,
Bye.
take care. Bye bye.